Hi, this is Jay Smith. I'm sitting here in London, and this is my colleague, Hatun Tash. Yet we're here today because of what happened yesterday. Yesterday caused quite a furore down at Speaker's Corner, didn't it?
Yes, like every Sunday, we went to Speaker's Corner yesterday and we took with us our 26 Qurans, 26 different Arabic
We're
Qurans.
going to get to that, but it really did cause the Muslims a lot of anger. And you can see the video right before this one. Take a look at the reaction of the Muslims. They reacted because they have been told, and every Muslim is told this, that there is only one Quran. There has only ever been one
Yeah.
Quran. And this Quran is uncreated. It all has always existed in heaven. Surah 85, Ayah 22 refers to this. It was sent down to, they believe, the Prophet named Muhammad between 610 and 632, 22 years. And they've been told that though it was not written at that time, it was Uthman, the third caliph, then who was given the responsibility to rewrite the Quran in the Qurayshi dialect. And the reason for that is because if there's any disagreement, dialectical disagreement, that's a problem in and of itself. We're not going to talk about that now. But we get that from Sahih Bukhari. Sahih Bukhari, which you will see on your screen. Sahih Bukhari, volume 6, hadith number 5, 9, and 510. In 5, 9, it refers to the fact that Zayd ibn Thabit, along with three others, Zubair, Alas, and Harith, were given the responsibility to rewrite the Quran.
Yes.
Very important that was therefore when the Quran was written down. And then Uthman did a very curious thing.
Uthman ordered all other written materials to be burned.
Burned.
Yeah.
Why would you burn
Well,
something?
you wouldn't want people to see what people were disagreeing with.
Obviously, these were disagreements. If this was just dialogical or dialectical differences or different readings, then you wouldn't need to burn them, would you?
Yeah.
So obviously must be one reading that we're talking about here.
According to tradition, yes,
According to Abu Hari.
we should have one Quran from time of Uthman, one dialect, one version.
Nonetheless, he then took the one that the canonized one that Zayd ibn
Compiled.
Thabit compiled, and he took that one and he sent it to all the different provinces. Now, we have a problem with that a little bit because we have found that there are more than just one province, aren't there? There's quite a few copies that were sent to others. There's a tradition of how many of these provinces there were. Give me some of the ideas of what we have found.
Tradition a bit confused how many provinces there were. We read there are some writings talks about there were 4 copies written and then sent it to the 4 major cities. Another tradition tells us there were 5 copies, one kept in Mecca. There is another
And the one tradition that before is Abu Ahmad al-Dani talks about the 1 to 4 copies.
Yes.
A Suyuti, who much later in the 15th
15th
century
century.
talks about the 5 copies.
Yes, and then we read there might be 6 copies, one Uthman's personal copy, and then one different from Medina, and then there is 7 copy. That might be 7 copy, which is Mecca, Medina, Syria, Basra, Kufa, Yemen, Bahrain, or Egypt. We read those things around 9th century again by Abu Hatim as
Sijistani.
Sijistani. Or there might be some commentaries, there might be 8 copies.
Well,
So tradition a bit confused how many copies made and send it around.
what does when it says to every province, how many provinces existed?
So when we look back, we see in 7th century there are 9 provinces.
Let me just list them all to you. You have
Okay.
Basra, you have Baghdad, you have Damascus, you have Jerusalem, you have Cairo, you have Alexandria, you have Aden,
Yeah.
then you have Herat and Nishapur.
So you've got 9 cities.
I've got 9 that I count there, so it's not 4, it's not 5, it's not 6, it's not 7, it's not 8. It is 9 provinces that they were sent to. That's quite a few provinces. And obviously, with the question we've asked many years, and we've done this also at the Speaker's Corner, if there are 9 of them that were sent out just 1,400 years ago, we should be able to find those 9. We can't find them, can we?
Yes, we should have 9 complete copy of the Quran, written down, complete, perfect, from 9 different cities.
We can't even find
But today
one.
we don't have anything.
Not
Yes.
from the mid-7th century that is
Yes.
complete. And that is exactly like the
same,
Quran that we
yeah.
have today. Now, beyond that, Uthman wanted to also be very careful. He wanted to make sure that every copy that was sent out, regardless whether it was 4 or 9, that he sent somebody with each copy, did he not?
Yes, as he sent people to places with every Quran, there were one person who went to these places. For example, we know in Medina, Zayd bin Thabit, in Mecca, Abdullah bin Saib, in Basra, Amir ibn Abdul Quyas. Sorry for the pronunciation.
Qais.
In Syria, Al-Muqarid ibn Shuba.
Mughira ibn Shuba.
Okay.
That's my American accent.
And to Kufa, Abu Rahman al-Sulaimani.
Now listen, just for those who are watching, we're desecrating the Arabic language. Please forgive us. She's Turkish. I'm American. Arabic is not our native language. Though we read Arabic, we do not pronounce it as you do. Forgive us right off the top, because we are going to mispronounce it all the way through, aren't we?
So that's why we will put them on the screen for you to see and understand what we are trying to say.
Please read them on the screen for your own sake, especially those who are native speakers. We can understand that probably is difficult for your ears. Now, nonetheless, he wanted to make sure that every one of these, and we've got a great graph that we're going to put up right now,
Yeah.
that shows that there were problems even with those that went with each one of these copies. The characters, the teachers, didn't always agree with what should be in the Quran. In fact, there were students of the teachers that disagreed with the teachers, weren't there?
Yes, but that goes back to time of Muhammad, because we read from the Sahih Muslim and Sahih Bukhari and Sahih Muslim. There is a story talks about two people are trying to recite during the prayer. They are reciting the same surah, but the way they recite the surah is different from one another.
Right.
One of the guy, you can get the full reference on the screen. One of the guy gets very angry with other guy's recitation. Both of them
Okay.
goes back to Muhammad, and Muhammad listened both of the recitation, and then he says, "Oh, that's fine. It's revealed to me in different ways."
Right. Okay. So there is an admission that is revealed in different ways.
Yes, that takes place, of course, before 632.
Right.
So in 650s, there is only one, like the Quran is written down as one
In one form.
one
So
perfect
when you
form.
write it down, there's not many ways to. I mean, you can read it by different dialectical readings, but we're talking about consonantal text form, the razm. The razm is the word letter by letter by letter by letter by letter. There's only one way to write that letter.
Yeah.
Now, there are many different ways to pronounce it. You're right. When you read it, you can pronounce it different ways.
Yes,
Is
but-
that the reading that Muslims are confusing today?
Muslim understanding of the reading looks like it is just the way you pronounce it.
See, that's not how it's written, though.
So plus that it doesn't look like that is how it was in time of Muhammad, because in the Sahih Bukhari, the story I just told, those two people are from the same place and they are reciting the same surah.
Muhammad does say that there are different readings, and why
Yes.
don't you go ahead and read this, and we'll put it up on the screen, because he does admit that there are different readings, doesn't he?
Yes. This is from Sahih Bukhari, volume 6, book 61, number 514, and 561, and also you can read the similar stories from Malik Muwatta 15, hadith number 5. Narrated by Umar bin Akhatab. I heard Hisham bin Khatim reciting Surah Al-Furqan during the lifetime of Allah's Apostle, and I listened to his recitation and noticed that he recited in several different ways, which Allah's Apostle had not taught me. I was about to jump over him during his prayer, but I controlled my temper, and when he had completed his prayer, I put his upper garment around his neck and seized him by it and said, "Who taught you this surah which I heard you are reciting?" He replied, "Allah's Apostle taught it to me." I said, "You have told a lie, for Allah's Apostle has taught it to me in a different ways from yours." So I dragged him to Allah's Apostle and said to Allah's Apostle, "I heard this person reciting Surah Furqan in a way which you haven't taught me. On On that, Allah's apostle said, "Release him, O Umar. Recite, O Hisham." Then he recited in the same way as I heard him reciting. Then Allah's apostle said, "It was revealed in this way," and added, "Recite, O Umar." I recited it as he had taught me. Allah's apostle said to them, "It was revealed in this way." This Quran has been revealed to be recited in 7 different ways. So, recite it whichever is easier for you, or read it as much of it as may be easier for you. So,
Okay, let me just ask you. So, recite it in this way, or this way, or this way, or this way. That means these are dialectical differences. Now, Hatun, if there were 7 different ways of writing it with consonantal differences, then the question needs to be asked, which is the one that's in heaven?
yes, since Quran is the eternal tablets in heaven, we would love to know which written
Of those 7,
written version.
which
of
was
is
the one
in
that
Allah.
the Jibril recited to Muhammad?
So tradition tells us Muhammad asked angel to give him different ways to recite because Muhammad knew people wouldn't able to recite as it was in heaven. So angel was kind of kind enough to Muhammad. He gave him to seven different ways.
So each verse was given by the angel 7 different ways.
Yeah, you can say
Do
that.
you really believe that? Or do you believe that? Are we listening to this correctly?
We read this story from the traditions. Tradition tells us angel made it easier for Muhammad and his followers to memorize it. So there was a bargain between Muhammad and angel, and suddenly we had 7 different ways of recitation.
And that
according
means
to tradition.
it could include 7 different meanings. It could be, we're talking about 7 different Qurans then. Already.
So Muslim understanding of readings is it is just the way you pronounce it. It doesn't change any meaning.
That's what I'm getting at. And can you see, and we're talking to the people who are watching this. Really, there is one way of writing it. There are many different ways of reading it. Now, let me explain this. If I were to go to Egypt right now, today in Cairo, and go to a newsstand and buy a newspaper, the newspaper I read in Arabic is written with only consonants and diacritical marks. There's no vowelizations. There's no dama, the u sound. There's no kasra, the e sound. And there's no fata, the ah sound, the u, ah, e. Those are the 3 vowels. They are needed for people who are in Libya, or someone reading this newspaper in Jordan, or another Arab-speaking country will read it different than they do in Egypt. So in order to sell these newspapers in every one of these countries, they do not put the vowelization.
Yes.
They keep off the vowels, the 3 vowels, the long and the short ones as well, so it makes it 6. So by doing that, they are able to sell their newspapers in all these different countries. And as you read it in those different countries, you put the vowelizations depending on your own dialect of Arabic. That is well known today. I think that's what this is talking about. So the readings are nothing more than the vowelizations, whereby the writing, however, which is consonantal, is the same. Otherwise, you're going to have 7 different Qurans with 7 different writings with 7 different meanings. So, multiplicity of meanings.
That is, yes, what kind of Islamic tradition tells us.
So I just want to give the background. This is the traditional account.
Okay.
So now we have come to the 21st century. The 21st century now, okay, you want to do that because we want to talk about these readers. Now, let's talk about these readers because we have some readers, you say, that disagree. Let's look at Al-Duri especially. Al-Duri is one that has a problem with 2 of his teachers, does he not?
Yeah, Al-Duri is the blind reader. Mm-hmm. So, Al-Duri is also student to person, Abu Abdurrahman as-Sulaymani, who went to Kufa, and then one of his students called Al-Qisra. So Al-Duri is the student of Al-Qisra. Also, Al-Duri is student of Abu Amir ibn Ala, who was in Syria.
Okay.
So, as Al-Duri kind of hears from his teachers, he learns from his teachers, in 2016 he leaves us 2 different Qurans.
Oh.
So, he leaves us a Quran which is disagree with his
Teacher?
no, he disagreed with his other
Other students
other
from
students
the teacher?
from the same teacher from Al-Harith.
Okay.
Also, he leaves us another Quran, which is he disagree with Al-Susi, who is the other student in Syria,
Of
in
Al-Ala.
Kufa. Yeah, sorry, in Syria. Yeah.
Okay, so here you have Al-Ala, who has two students, Al-Duri and Al-Susi. And up here you have Al-Qissa, who has two students, Al-Duri and Al-Harith.
Yes.
Al-Duri disagrees with Al-Harith up here,
Yeah.
and he also disagrees with Al-Susi down here.
Yes.
So he's confused as to, and we're going to show some examples of this, are we not?
Yes, we do have some examples.
So the examples we're going to look at now come from not just one Quran, not just two Qurans, not just three Qurans. You've been able to find 26 Qurans today in Arabic around the Arabic-speaking world. What cities did you go to find these Qurans?
You can easily find these Qurans in North Africa, in Yemen, in Lebanon, in Jordan, in Sudan.
Okay.
So it is
so
accessible for everyone to go and buy.
They're in North Africa and in the Middle East.
Yeah.
And the Qurans you have here are from Jordan, they're from Lebanon, and they're from North Africa.
Yemen and Sudan.
Yemen and Sudan. Okay, so these are the ones that you have been able to collect. We may even find different one more on top of this. We'll still keep looking.
Yes.
We know that other groups have found 17. There are, in Jordan alone, we understand there are 22 different
Quran.
Arabic Qurans. And there you can see, these are the ones you've collected so far. And you're now going through them. It's going to take years for you to get all the way through. But
That's
what have
fine.
you found? What have you found as you went through them? Why don't we get some of them off the pile there? And let's
Okay.
look at them. And let's look at these differences, because it's these differences
Yeah.
that are going to show us not only are we not talking about readings, we're talking about consonantal differences, which means a complete different reading.
So, since we've got 26 of them, we haven't able to look at all of them. So let's start with the.
And while she's getting this down, for those who are watching, one of the biggest anger yesterday at the corner, all the Muslims that were there, of the vast majority were Arab speakers. And what bothered them, as we opened up these different Qurans, and we just had to open up any page, almost any Quran, we could find what we call manuscript variants. These are consonantal variants, not vowelization, not reading differences, not ways of reading it differently. These are actually written differences between each Quran, and primarily between this Quran. Now, let's explain. This is the Hafs Quran.
This is the Hafs Quran, which has been canonized in 1924, and this is accessible to everyone. So
Now,
you can
say the
buy
date again, 1924. You're saying that this book was finalized, was written down in its final form in 1924 at Al-Azhar University in Cairo, in Egypt. That means it's less than 100 years old. It's not even 100 years old, which means, well, Prince Philip is older than this Quran. It's a pretty new Quran. But this has now become the canonized. This has become the official Quran by the Ibn Saud family in Saudi Arabia. That was done in 1987. So many people now know it as the Fard Quran. Even though we know it as Hafs, it is also referred to as the Ibn Saud or the Fard Quran, because it is Ibn Fad who is the one who actually gave the jurisdiction that is the official text. Now that's the text that we use here in Britain, is it not?
Yeah. Just don't get confused that don't say like we are reading the meaning of the Quran. We are looking at these Arabic writings. So we are looking at the writings of Arabic. We are not looking at the
Arabic.
translation.
So this is the Arabic Quran, not the translation, for those who, this is what she's saying. All right. Now, this is the one that we have used week in and week out all the time at Speaker's Corner, when we do our lectures, when we go on overseas. This is the one we always take with us. The translation is Yusuf Ali. We're not looking at the translation. We want to look at the Arabic. Now, what have you found by looking at the Arabic? And you have gone through this with your Arabic speakers. So you've used native Arabic speakers who also teach Arabic. You asked them to compare
the certain
verses with verse. Let's go and let's look at some of them.
So because I've got Welsh version like longer than other versions, So let's start with the Walsh version.
In fact, let's do that for lack of time
Yeah.
because we could be here all day going through all 26 of those. Let's just do the Hafs, which is very popular in all of Middle East. It's
Yeah.
also popular in Britain. And the Warsh, which is very popular in North Africa. The Warsh
Yeah.
is one you'll find in North Africa.
Okay.
And let's start with what? Surah 2?
Let's start with Surah 2, verse 10.
Verse 10. Okay, right at the very beginning. Now, in Surah 2, verse 10,
Yeah.
it says here, and we'll put it up on the screen. It says they lie, yakdibuna. So mine is yakdibuna.
Okay.
What does yours say?
And I've got the Walsh version in my hand. In this one, it says yukadibuna, which means they were lied to, or you can also translate they deny.
So in my version, the Hafs, they lie is what it says.
Yeah.
That's yakdibuna. But in your version, the Warsh here, it was yukadibuna, which is they were lied to or they denied. We're putting this up on the screen for your Arab readers so you can read where they are. You will see it is very different. It is quite different because the diacritical marks and the
Yeah.
vowelization are very much different. That is Surah 2, Ayah 10. Let's go a little bit further to Surah 2, Ayah 48. In Surah 2, Ayah 48, it says in my Hafs version,
Okay,
Yukbal.
that's the Ruh Quran.
I'm sorry. We want the Ruh Quran here.
Okay.
Now you're getting another Quran. So this is the Warsh. Now we're going to the Ruh. It's a completely different Quran, and it's known as the Ruh Quran.
Okay, this is the Ruh Quran, which goes back to the main teacher is Yaqub in Al-Hashami. We look at the Surah 2, verse 48.
And guard yourself against a day when no soul will in aught avail another, nor will intercession be accepted. Now, the word here is yukbal, but that is the wrong grammar because that is male. It should not be male. It should be female here.
Okay, so in Ruh version of the Quran, Surah 2, verse 48, it's the word is Tokbal.
Or tukbal instead of yukbal.
Yes.
So it is corrected.
Yes, Tukbal is for the context of the female.
All right.
Yukbal is the context of the male. So if you read the verse, it's context of the female. So Hafs version got it wrong as a grammatical
Grammatically
sense,
wrong.
but Ruh version of the Quran gets it correct.
Corrects it and gets it correct. Now, let's go to Surah 2, Ayah 125. If you can go back to your Warsh version again. Surah 2, Ayah 125. And we'll put this on the screen there.
Yeah.
Here you have, in the Hafs version, etakizu. Etakizu, which means to take. Remember, we made the house a place of assembly for man and a place of safety. And take ye the station of Abraham. What does yours say in the Warsh?
Okay. In the Warsh version of the Quran, it says etakhazu,
So from etakizu, it's been changed to etakazu.
which changed the meaning of the word, which is have taken instead of take. So it is suddenly like different tense and different
Okay.
word.
And take ye the station of Abraham is changed to and have taken
Taken,
ye.
yes.
So there's a completely different meaning to the text. It
Yes.
changes the tense of the whole text. Now let's continue on. Let's go to verse 132. And this is about Abraham and his sons in 132. And here in 132, as you can see, I'm holding it up here, the reference is Abraham enjoined his son, and the word is wawasa. Wawasa. What does it say in the Warsh?
Okay, in Walsh it is as wa'awsa.
Wa'ausa. Okay.
So in Walsh version of the Quran it says, and Ibrahim instructed his son.
So here you have an inclusion, an interjection in the Warsh of an aleph. An
Yes.
aleph is put between the two wows.
Yes.
That's an entirely different, that's a consonantal difference right there. They've imported a consonantal difference, an aleph. Wawasa, enjoined, has been changed to wa'ausa, instructed in verse 132. Now let's move on to 140, Surah 2, Ayah 140. In Surah 2, Ayah 140, in my Hafs version, it says takuluna. So you say, takaluna, you say.
Okay. In Walsh version of the Quran, it says yakulun.
Ah, from
Yakuluna.
takaluna, it's yakuluna.
Yes.
That makes it third person plural.
Yes.
They say.
Yes. Do they say that Abraham and Ishmael and Isaac and Jacob?
Ah, so it's even a question. Do you say? So here is do you say been changed to third person plural to do they say. So
Yes.
that has a hugely different,
Yes.
because it's they plural versus you singular. So that has another enormous difference there. Now let's move on to Surah 2, Ayah 184. Surah 2, 184 says
Yeah.
here, Ta'amu miskini.
Okay.
So redemption by feeding a poor man. A poor man, it's singular. So ta'amu miskini. But what does it say in the Warsh?
Okay. In Warsh version, Surah 2, verse 184, Ta'ami Masakina, which means redemption by feeding poor man. So, redemption by feeding group of people. Versus in Hafs, it is redemption by feeding a man, one person.
You get redeemed according to the house burden by just feeding one person. By the Warsh, you get redeemed by feeding many men.
Yes.
That's a huge difference because that also has an impact on how you get redeemed, how you find redemption. Now let's go to Surah 2, Ayah 214. Surah 2, Ayah 214 talks about the past and the future. So I want to, because here you have completely different. Now in the Hafs, it says that they said hatta yukula. That's the past tense. That they said hatta yukula. There you can read it on the screen.
Yeah. In Surah chapter 2, verse 214, in Warsh version, it is Hatta Yakulu, which means is until they say. So, while in Warsh Quran, it is future tense, in Hafs Quran, it is past tense.
So yakula is changed to yakulu.
Yes.
And I hope you're seeing that on the screen. And those of you who speak Arabic, read it. You will see these are very different. That changes the meaning, either whether it happened or it will happen. Now let's go a few verses later to Surah 2, Ayah 219. In my Hafs version, it's because here we're going to look at Hafs versus Abu Harith al-Duri al-Kissa and also Abu Amr al-Ala. So we're going to actually look at two al-Duris because al-Duri contradicts himself in verse 219. Fascinating. In the Hafs version, while we're looking at it, you'll put it up on the screen there. The word is kabir, great. In the Al-Qissa and Abu Harith and Al-Duri, it's kathir. There's Al-Duri saying that here is a light or a lot of sin. In them is a lot of sin and benefit for people. That is also repeated in Abu Harith. He says Al-Kathir. In them is a lot of sin. So here you have 1, 2, 3, 4 Qurans that have Al-Kathir, a lot of sin. In the Hafs, you have it is great or big. And then Al-Duri contradicts himself in another place and he puts it back to Kabir, a big sin. So is it a big sin, which means a size of sin, or is it a lot of sin, which means numerically many sins?
So, the Quran is I am holding is this is the Walsh one, and according to Walsh, it is big sin. So kabir. Okay?
Kabir, and that would agree with the Hafs.
Yes. And this is Al-Duri Quran, but this is the one which he disagree with Susi. Okay, and in this one it is kabir, again big sin.
Big sin.
Okay, it's agree with the Walsh.
Warsh and the Hafs.
Okay. And in
then we're going to get
this-
to the other one, and here we get to one that disagrees.
So, and then in here I've got Abu Harith, which Al-Duri is disagreeing with. In here, it's Surah 219. it is the katir, so a lot of sin.
So there it's a lot of sin, which means many sins.
Yeah.
And the other one, it's big, which means a great sin.
Yeah.
That has completely different meanings.
I've got another Quran, which is Abu Amir ibn Alala al-Duri. In this one, Surah 2 verse 219 is Kabir, again big,
Big again.
yeah. And then,
So that's Al-Duri and Al-Allah.
yeah. And then I've got another one, this is Al-Qasar Abu Hadid, what al-Duri is disagreeing with.
Oh, here's Al-Duri disagreeing with himself.
Yes. In Surah 2 verse 219, the word used is katir, which
Katir.
is a lot.
So that's a different word. So Al-Duri here says big, but here he says a lot.
Yes.
A big sin versus a lot of sin.
Yeah.
That changes the meaning
I
completely.
guess that's because Al-Duri is the student of two different teachers and from two different locations. And in his readings, according to Islamic tradition, one of them is just a great sin, other one is a lot of sin.
So the great sin, Al-Duri says that when he's with Al-Allah, but
Yeah.
when he's with Al-Qisal, he
Yeah.
then puts it to a lot of sin. Fascinating. So here you have even a student disagreeing with himself, depending on what teacher he is with,
Yeah.
or what teacher he is studying under. Now, let's go to Surah 2, 271. The Hafs is Yukafir. So here it is Yukafir, he. He will remove from some of your misdeeds. He will remove from you some of your evil. What does it say in your...
Okay, I am holding right now Al-Duri version of the Quran. Surah 2, 271 is Mukaffir. We. That means like we will remove.
It is nu kafir. It should be with a nun, because
Yes,
there's
with
nun
an.
there.
Yeah.
Nu kafir, that is we.
Yes, we will remove.
We will
from
remove.
some of
So
the sin.
in the Hafs, it is yukafir, which
Yeah.
is he will remove. In the Al-Duri, from Al-Allah, it
Yeah.
is nukafir, we will remove. What
Yeah.
about Al-Susi?
Let me get that one.
While she's looking at that, can you see this changes from some he? Who is he talking about here? Is this God who will remove it? To we. Can we remove sin? Are we able to do so? Unless God is plural. I doubt if God is plural. So it must be, this is a contradiction. So that has theological implications.
Yeah.
What does it say in Al-Susi?
So this is what Al-Susi is disagreeing. Surah 2 verse 270 is Nukaffar. Again, we will remove some of your sin, some of your mistakes.
Nukafir.
Nukaffir.
Sorry, nukafir. So that's like what Al-Duri says.
Yes.
So Al-Susi agrees with Al-Duri and also Al-Allah. They say that we will remove from you some sins of your
Yes,
misdeeds.
but Hafs disagree with
Wow,
them.
wow,
Hafs
wow,
says
wow.
he will remove
He
them.
will remove. And I would suggest that there's some theological problems there
Yeah.
with the others. That's I leave with the Muslims to deal with. But can you see, this is not simple different readings. These are completely different consonantal
Yeah.
texts. More than that, these consonantal texts change the meaning completely from
yeah.
someone he, which I assume is God, to we, which means us. We can remove the sins. That has enormous complications. Now let's
Yeah.
go to Surah 3. In Surah 3, we get into verse 146. Surah 3, ayah 146. And now we're getting into whether they were killed or they fought. 146, oh dear, here we go. The prophets, according to my Hafs, it is katala. There it is, katala.
Okay. And
That means they fought. The prophets fought.
okay, I've got Al-Bazi version. Okay, Surah 3 verse 146 is Kutala.
Kutala, wait a minute.
Kutala.
That means
Which
they were
means
killed.
They were killed. So it talks about the prophets. It talks about prophets were killed.
So in the Hafs version, the prophets just fought.
Yeah.
They lived. Looks like they didn't die.
Yeah. And in the full sentence, it will be how many prophets with him were killed.
Rather than how many prophets with him fought with him.
Yeah.
So how many a prophet fought with him and fought many religious scholars is what
Yeah.
it's saying in the Hafs.
Yeah. And then we've got the same problem with the Warsh Quran, Warsh chapter 3 verse 146 again were killed.
We're killed again.
So, I've got-
Kutila.
Kutila. I've got Warsh Quran, I've got Al-Bazi Quran. They are agreeing with one another that were killed, but Hafs Quran is disagreeing with them. It's fought. Past tense for the fight.
Huge difference. Now, you can't say that's just a reading difference. That is a consonantal difference,
Yeah.
which changes the meaning, changes the story, and changes the implication of what happened to those
Yeah.
prophets. Did they die or did they live? Now, let's go on to Surah 21. Surah 21 now, we're getting into Surah 21, Ayah 4. And Surah 21, Ayah 4, in the Hafs version, it has Kala. Now, Kala means he said. So he's saying something. What does it say in the
Okay.
Warsh version?
In Walsh chapter 21 verse 4 it is kul. It's just say. So it's like God is speaking here. Say my Lord knows. So
Okay.
Arabic word used is qal, which means say.
Kul. So
Kul.
it's kul here, Kala here, which means the prophet said. So here the prophet speaking.
Yeah.
Kul, say. That's
Yeah,
God
that's
speaking.
God is speaking.
So
Yeah.
here God is speaking in the Warsh, and Prophet Muhammad is speaking, or whoever the prophet is, may not be Muhammad. In the Hafs, it's the prophet speaking.
Yeah.
Here, man speaking, God speaking. Man, that's
Which one is correct?
talk about theological difficulties there. I leave that with you Muslims. You've got two different Qurans bringing out a completely different theological implication. Is God speaking or is man speaking in Surah 21, Ayah 4? Now, Surah 28, Ayah 48. And we continue on. Surah 28, Ayah 48. I should have little stickers in here so I can get right to them. But I'm going to get Surah 28, Ayah 48. And here you have, fascinating. The word in Hafs is sihrani, two works of magic. They said, two works of magic supporting each other, and indeed we are in both disbelievers. So two works of magic, sihrani. What does it say in the Warsh?
Okay. Warsh version of the Quran, chapter 28, verse 48 says Sahirana.
Sahirani. So from
Which-
sihrani, it's sahirani.
Which means two magicians.
Oh, hold on a minute.
So in this sentence, it is, they said two magicians are supporting each other.
And in the Hafs, it says that two works of magic are supporting each other. So is it an act or is it a person?
Yeah.
Folks, this changes the meaning quite a bit. You can see these are typical, common human errors. God would not make mistakes like this, but man will.
Yes.
Now we move on to Surah 34, Ayah 17.
Read from him.
We awarded them because of their ingratitude. Punish we ever any save the ingrates. Punish we. So we punish. So this is nugazia. Nugazia is we punish.
Okay. In Warsh version of the Quran, chapter 34, verse 17 is Yugaza,
Yugaza.
which means gets punished.
So here we do the punishment to you receiving the punishment. One is doing the action, one is receiving the action.
Yes. In Warsh 1, you are the one who is receiving the action, punishment.
I would prefer the Hafs, thank you, so that I'm giving it. Now we come to one that has caused an awful lot of, this is the one that most people think is the problem. And it's always in Surah 1, Ayah 4. It's also in Surah 114, Ayah 2. And that's the reference to Malik, or Malik.
Yeah.
Malik is king. Malik is owner of the owner or the master. And many Muslims think that this is the only problem. In Surah 1, Ayah 4, in the Hafs Quran, it is Malik.
Yes. In Warsh 1, it's Malik without Alif.
Sorry, it's Malik in the Hafs.
Hafs,
Let me
yes.
get that correct.
It's in the Walsh version, it is without Alif, it's Malik.
That's right, Malik.
Okay, so in Walsh translation, it is a king. In the Hafs translation, it is the master or owner of the day.
Owner of the day.
Yeah.
So in the Hafs, it's the owner versus it's the king. Now, we brought this up at the Speaker's Corner yesterday, and they said, they're the same. Owner, king owns everything.
I think it will be very dishonest if we say they are the same, because Bible has been translated to many different languages, and one of the languages Arabic. We've got those words are used in the Bible. Genesis chapter 14 contains kings and so Genesis chapter 14 gives us the Arabic word for Malik and also for Malik. So in Genesis 14 we read the name of all the kings. They are Malik
They're
without
just straight
Alif.
Malik with no Aleph.
And then in again Genesis chapter 14, it's in the same chapter, we read the verse with Alif, Malik.
Malik,
Yes.
a long A with a dagger Aleph that's added at later on. And that dagger Aleph makes it owner.
Yeah, so in Arabic Bible, there is a distinction between Malik and Malik. Even though Muslims come say, oh, it doesn't matter stuff, but actually it does matter. And in the Bible, we put it in different form, how it's supposed to be. Sadly,
In the Quran.
fails to do that in different formats.
Okay, now what I'm going to do to save time,
Yeah.
I'm going to do a rendition. I'm just going to go through a summary of everything we've gone through. Where's your warsh? Let's just
This
do
one.
between the hafs and the warsh.
Okay.
So let's do between these two. Let's just look at what we now have found between just these two books.
Yeah.
Now, Hatun, we have 26 books here.
Yeah.
You haven't had time to go through all of this yet. Even the team in Melbourne hasn't had time to go through all of these. You've just had time really to go through Hafs and Warsh.
Yeah.
And this is what you have found just between these two. Once you have gone and checked it with an Arab speaker and an Arab teacher,
Yeah.
this is what they have showed you. Surah 1, Ayah 4, owner of the day, Maliki. In your case,
It's the king of the day.
so it's Maliki, just simple. Surah 2, Ayah 10, in the Hafs, they lie, Yadibuna.
In verse 1, it is they were lied to. It's yukadhibuna.
Yukadibuna, okay? In Surah 2, Ayah 58, we give mercy, which is Nakfir.
In Welsh version, it is Yaghfur. He gives mercy.
So from we to he.
Yeah.
In Surah 2, Ayah 125, you should take. In the Warsh, it is what?
They have taken.
In Surah 2, Ayah 132, and Ibrahim enjoined on his sons, Wawasa, in the Warsh.
It's in the Welsh one, it's Wa'afsa. It is, and Ibrahim instructed his sons.
In Surah 2, Ayah 140, in the Hafs version, you say, Takuluna changes to,
Yakuluna.
okay? Instead of Takuluna, it becomes Yakuluna.
Yakuluna, they say.
They say. In Surah 2, Ayah 184, a redemption by feeding a poor man, Ta'amu miskinin becomes,
Redemption by feeding poor man. So it comes in a group format. Ta'ami masakina.
so from one man to
group of
a
men.
group of men.
Yeah.
In Surah 2, Ayah 214, in the Hafs, it says, so that they said, Hatta Yakula,
Okay. In Welsh version is hatta yakulu.
Hatta Yakulu.
Until they said.
So they said becomes until they said. In Surah 2, Ayah 259, we shall raise up Nun Shizuha,
Versus nun suruhna.
Nun Shiruha.
We shall make alive.
So from Nun Shizuha becomes Nun Shiruha. We shall make alive instead we shall raise up. That's
Yeah.
quite a bit different. Raising, holding someone up versus bringing them back to life. Surah 3, Ayah 81, I give you Ataitukum.
Atai nakum, verse which means we give you.
So from I give you, you
Versus
comes
we
we
give
give
you.
you. That's a hugely different reference point there. Surah 3, Ayah 133. And hasten to, wasari'u becomes
Sa'ariyu, hasten to.
hasten to.
Hasten to.
And hasten to becomes just hasten to. Surah 3, Ayah 146. The prophets fought, katala in Hafs becomes
Kutala, were killed.
kutila.
Kutila, were killed.
Were killed. So they either fought or they died. I will go with the Hafs on that one if I was a prophet. Surah 4, Ayah 152. He gives them, yutihim becomes in Warsh,
Nu'tinumi.
nutihimu.
We give them.
Nuktihimu, we give them.
them.
So is it he giving them or we giving them? Oh, I love that. That's quite a bit difference right there. In Surah 5, Ayah 54, yartada, turn back, becomes in Warsh,
Yartadit, which is in order form.
in an order from yartardid. You're right. So Surah 21, Ayah 4, Kala, he said, my Lord knows, becomes
Kul, my Lord, say my Lord knows.
say. It's God speaking. It's imperative. Only God speaks like that. Surah 28, ayah 48. Two works of magic, sihrani becomes
Saharin.
Saharini.
Saharini.
Sahirani.
Two magicians.
So, two works of magic becomes two men of magic. Surah 34, ayah 17. We punish Nugazia.
Yugaza, which becomes gets punished.
So we do it or you get punished.
Yeah.
I'd rather be the Hafs. In every case, the Hafs has it better for me if I was a prophet or if I was someone doing the punishment or if I was God, obviously. Surah 91, ayah 15. And for him no fear. Wala yakafu.
Becomes falaya kufu, therefore for him no fear.
Wala yakafu. Well, therefore for him no fear.
Yes.
Now, we're just going through a few of these because it's going to take us all day.
Yeah.
Because how many have you found just between these two books?
If you compare Hafs version of the Quran versus Warsh version of the Quran, you can easily come up over 1,300.
You have already found
I counted them.
1,300.
I counted them.
You kept, and you're not even finished yet. There'll be others
So,
that
and
you're yet to find.
I've got Walsh version of the Quran, which is written by different students, they are disagreeing with one another. So this is like general Walsh, and then we've got another two Qurans different from.
So you have three different renditions of the Warsh Quran.
Yes.
How many have you found amongst the Hafs? Because we've only heard there's only one Hafs.
There are, I think we've got 6 Hafs, I think.
So 6 different Hafs.
Yeah.
Not just one, not just two, not just 3, 6 different Hafs versions.
Yeah.
So can you see?
We all need to look at them and then see what are the differences. Does it change the meaning of it, or it just seriously it just doesn't make any changings? But so far the things we look, yes, there are a couple of verses or vocabularies doesn't change anything. We don't even need to talk about them. But there are over 1,300 between Hafs and Walsh version. They change the meaning
Just
of
this
the
Warsh
sentence.
and that Hafs.
Yes.
Because there are 6 of these and there's another 3 of that.
Yes.
You're only looking at one of them versus one of the 6.
Yes.
And you found already 1,300 differences. And
Yes.
these are consonantal differences. These change the meaning, as you
Yes.
have seen. That's why I went through it. Now, just hand me any one of those up there. In fact, why don't you give me a few of them? Let me just take this. And when you open it up, I'm just going to open up to any given page.
That's the wrong side.
Make sure it's the right side up. And I'm just going to show the camera here. I did this on the corner yesterday, and boy, the Muslims got angry. If you just take
Okay, let me just tell you what Quran you are holding right now. You are holding the Quran which has been sent to Mecca, Abdullah ibn bin Shahid, and this is by Ibn Kathir Ibn Kathir students is Al-Bazi, and in here we are seeing what Al-Bazi write. Also on the red writings, we are seeing what the Kumbul, who was the other student of Ibn Kathir, disagrees with.
Okay, so every time you see a red word, I can open up almost any page. There's a red word. I can open up another page. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 red words. These are where the students have disagreed with the teacher.
Yes.
These are different words. These are what we call manuscript variants.
So students are disagreeing with one another.
Even with
They
each
are
other.
learning from one teacher. They are disagreeing with one another.
And in each case, you can see on almost every page, this is just one example
Yeah.
of where we can find this. Give me another example.
Okay. This is the Quran which was sent to Syria according to tradition. This is the Al-Duri Quran from Abu Amar Allah.
Now, if you look, I'm just opening
Remember
at
Al-Duri?
random. I'm
We
just
had
opening
two
random.
Al-Duri, so
This is from the Al-Duri who studied under Allah, not
Yeah.
Al-Kisal. We're looking at Allah.
yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I'm looking at 12, oh, I have 12, 13, 14 differences between the 2 pages.
Yeah.
I just took this at random. I could open up almost any page and look at these. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. I run out. This is Al-Duri completely disagreeing with not only with the other students, but also with his
Yeah.
teachers.
We need to work out all those differences, all those variations change the meaning of the sentence or not. But so far, this Quran is already telling us there are the differences. So this Quran is just telling us there is the variations on
And
that.
this you can buy today
Yeah.
in Syria, or you can buy it in Jordan, or you can buy it in Yemen.
Yemen.
These are in existence all over the Arab-speaking world.
Yep.
These are Arab Qurans. These are not translations, folks. These are the supposedly the original Arab Quran. But look at all the disagreements we have with well-known students. These are scholars. These are not just people off the street like you or me saying, I want to read it this way or I want to write it this way. These are, well, intellectual,
Yeah.
scholarly people.
And then this one is the Hafs Quran, but red writings is what Susi is disagreeing with Hafs.
Al-Susi, look at all
Yeah.
the different places he disagreed. I mean, you can see entire phrases, entire sentence here. Here's an entire sentence that he disagrees with. So whenever you see that, these are now what they've done is they put in the margin
So you
what,
can figure out what are the disagreements. on
what
the
they would
Quran.
rather put, and this is what they think it should be. Now, can you understand why when people come up to us and say there's only one Quran and it's read the same way all over the world, we're just giving you a smattering of different ones of the ones we've come across. This, which is this one here.
Yeah, it is said, this is the Ruh one. It is said actually because for not every Quran tells us what are the disagreements between students, but it just tells us there are the disagreements. I think it is shame that we can't just turn up the Islamic bookshop and buy one Quran, which we can see what are the disagreements, what is the meaning of the sentence, how it affects. It is said like in 2016 we have to work them out by ourselves. But in here, we've got the Quran by Yaqub al-Hashim. This is the Ruh Quran. And then it just tells us what the Ruyas, who is the other student, is disagreed. You can just see them. Again, those reds are the what other student Ruyas disagreed.
And I'm just going to do randomly, open page by page by page. I mean, there's not a page where there's not these disagreements. There are so many disagreements by these scholars that do not agree on what Quran. So we cannot say anywhere that these are all of these Qurans are in agreement. Not one of them is in agreement. Not one of the 26 we're looking at. We're getting hundreds and hundreds. But we wanted to find out more what the disagreements are. Now, before we conclude this whole thing, what I want to do, that's a huge pile of books. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to bring a chair over here, and I want you to tell me exactly the names of every one of those books, why they're important, so that Muslims can realize we're not just showing you the same Quran in many different forms.
Yeah, that would be helpful.
Let's do that so that they can see what we're talking about.
Okay, so let's start with the very common one. This is the Hafs Quran, which has been canonized in 1924.
So this is the one that we use at Speaker's Corner every Sunday. This is the Hafs.
Yeah. This is the Quran by Al-Dari, which was actually sent to Syria by Syria with Al-Bukhari ibn Shahub around 670s, and in Damascus, Abu Amir Allah, who Duri was the student of Amir Allah. So in this Quran, we've got what the Susi is disagreeing with Al-Duri. Okay?
Okay, so here we have scholars from 670 and 770.
Yeah.
Oh, hold on a minute. So you're talking about the 8th century. This is very old.
Okay. And in here we've got Quran by Hafs. This comes from Abu Bakr Asim. In here we've got what Susi is disagreeing with Hafs. Okay.
And the dates for Al-Susi are
Susi's date.
778.
Yeah, after 8th
After
century.
778. So 8th century. So this
Yeah.
is 8th century as well. So these are disagreements that have been going on for 1300 years.
So in here we've got Yaqub al-Hashimi. This is the Ruh Quran. And in here we've got what Ruwais, who was the other student with Ruh, is disagreeing with him. So all those red lines would be for that.
Okay, so again, a third one. Now we got a fourth one.
Okay, maybe you put them in other side, yeah? And in here we've got Quran al-Harith, who is the student of Al-Qisra. And in this Quran, which gives us what is the Al-Duri is disagreeing with al-Harith.
Okay, and this is from the 9th century, 804. So we're getting now into the 9th century. Now we're getting 1200 years old that these disagreements have been going on.
Okay. This is Al-Bazi Quran by Ibn Kathir. And in here we see some of the disagreements, but Kumbal, he's the other student with Al-Bazi, is disagreeing with him.
And this is the dates for this one is 737, so we're back to the 8th century. This is 1300 years ago.
Yeah. And this is the general Warsh Quran. You can just buy it in North Africa.
Okay, this is the one that you have been using
Yeah.
all the way through. That's why you have so many tabs on it.
Okay. And this one is again Hafs Quran by Abu Bakr Asim. And this is, we see what Shaba is disagreeing, but it goes back to the root of Shahabataya. So we need to all kind of work out what are the disagreements, all those things, but you can see that.
Okay, and this one we haven't really gone through all the disagreement.
Yeah.
There's an awful lot to do on this, but it's 778, so
Yeah.
it's 8th century.
Yeah. This is one of the Quran which kind of comes from Kufa by Abu Ahab Rahman. Another Hafs Quran, and in this one we see what Ibn Amar is disagreeing with Hafs.
Ibn Amr, actually Abu Bakr Asim Hafs, which is the 778 one,
Yeah.
that's 8th century as well. Much
Yeah.
the same time period as the one below it.
Another Hafs Quran, but in this one we see what Abu Jafar is disagreeing with.
Abu Jafar, so it's like the other two, it's around the 8th century as well,
Yeah.
late 8th century.
Another late 8th century Quran, another Hafs Quran. In this one we see what Kulin is disagrees. Kulin is the one of the student of Nafi, late 8th century.
Late 8th century again.
Yeah.
So we're now getting up to the 4th Hafs Quran.
Okay, this is another Hafs Quran. In here we see what Al-Duri is disagreeing, Abu Omar al-Basari, and he is disagreeing with Kisra. Okay,
So Kisal, this is his student Al-Duri, the blind. He was known,
Al-Duri is the student of Kisra,
Kisal, but he is known as the blind.
blind one. Yeah,
The blind one, okay. And this is late 8th century as well.
yeah. Another late 8th century. This is the Quran which supposed to be sent to the Kufa. This is the Hamsa Khalaf Quran, and in this Quran we see what is the Khalid is disagreed with Khalaf. So both of them are the student of Hamza.
And they both are disagreeing. So there we have another 8th century.
Okay.
Hafs, go ahead.
Another Hafs Quran from Kufa. In this one we just see what Ibn Kathir is disagreeing with Hafs.
And again,
Okay.
late 8th century.
Margins are showing the disagreements which we all need to study and see what are the disagreements in.
This is something really Muslims need to do, don't
Yeah.
they? It's
It-
amazing that you've done it, but
It would
listen,
be helpful if we get
if
that
they would
from
do
the
their own work,
Muslims.
you're right.
Yeah, and this is one of the Quran was sent Quran from Medina. Zaid bin Talib. This is the Walsh version, but this is Al-Azraq one.
So this is Al-Azraq,
Right.
and the dates for him are 785.
Yes, late 8th century.
785, late 8th century again. That's the one.
Abu Jafar Quran by Ibn Jamaz, and in this one we see what Ibn Wardan is disagreed, but this is the Dora way, okay?
The Dora way.
Yes, not Duri, Dora way.
Dora, so it's not Duri, but
Rooted.
Dora.
Yeah.
Like a woman's name, Dora. Okay, even more than this one. So that's
Okay.
fascinating. So there's another one young that disagrees.
And this one is from Basra, Ibn Amir, Hisham in Abad. This is Dahakum. I think my pronunciation is wrong on that. Dahakum. We see what Dahakum is disagreeing with Hisham ibn Bi Amar. So Dahakum is from the Basra as well.
And the date for this is 736, so
Yeah.
early 8th century. Even earlier.
Yeah. Another Quran, Khalaf al-Assar. This is Al-Dura one.
That's the one we like, the El Dora we had before.
Yeah. Not Duri, Dura. Okay?
Dora,
There
I
is-
know.
There
Yeah.
is differences
Dora, like
on
the name
that.
of the woman.
Okay. Another Quran from Kufa. This is Abu Bakr Asim, Ibn Ayas, Asam bin Ali Najat. Okay, so you can see those red writings. Margins
778
needs to-
again, so this is
Yeah.
late 8th century. Almost, have you noticed, almost all of these are very early disagreements. They still exist today. And you can see, I can open up almost any page and there is the red. There are the red disagreements. These are
Yeah.
the words that they are saying, we're not putting this, we didn't write these. These are going on from 778, late 8th century. These disagreements are already being found.
Sadly, not every Quran gives us all the disagreements. We need to work them out. But there are some has been very generous and
They've
give
been
us
helpful,
the
so very
disagreement.
helpful in helping us that way.
This is another Hafs Quran by Abu Bakr Asim. This is what Yaqub is disagreeing with him. Okay, again you can see the margins and disagreements on that.
8th
which we
century,
need to
late
study.
8th century again. This is 1300 years ago.
Okay, this is the Quran to Kufa, Abu Ar-Rahman As-Sulaimani, Abu Bakr Asim from Hafs, and this is what Khalaf al-Asir is disagreeing with. Again, it's the student, Khalaf al-Asir is the student of Hamza.
This is 778, late 8th century. Boy, we're getting an awful lot of these that have been disagreeing almost from the very beginning.
Medina, this is the Zayd bin Thabit. This is Nafi Warsh Quran, but it is Al-Asabari.
And this one comes from 785. So it's another 7 years later that disagreement starts to come in.
Yeah, these are the simplest one now. This is Nafi and just Kualin one.
Okay, so we'll put that one right up here.
Yeah. This is the Quran which was sent to the, according to tradition, to Mecca. Ibn Kathir Kumbul one. This is also in here we see what Al-Bazi is disagreeing with him. Al-Bazi is again student of Ibn Kathir. So
And
two
this is
students are
very
disagreeing
early.
with
This
one
is
another.
737, which makes it in the early 8th century.
And in here we've got the Quran to Kufa again. This is Hamza and it comes from the Qalaf.
And 772. So it predates most all of those Qurans that are Hafs from 778.
Okay. This is the Quran to Basra. Ibn Amir, this is the Quran by Hisham, who is a student of Ibn Amir. And Hisham gives us also, in the Quran also we see what the Hakum is disagreeing with him. So both of those people are from Basra.
736, early 8th century. You can see, we're talking about, this has been going on for hundreds and hundreds of years.
And this is the Quran by Al-Qasra, Abu Harith one. And in here we see what Al-Duri is disagreeing with him. So one of them is from Kufa, other one is from Syria.
And this is 9th century, a little bit later. Now, the book you're opening up now is very special. Why is that an interesting book?
This is the very easy and simple one because this contains the 10 readings. Sadly, it doesn't give us what are the different readings. It just tells us, oh, there are the readings, you can get it. It took ages to find all those things. But when you just open page, all those color codes tells you actually there are the difference in other versions of the Quran. So of course we need to work out if it does change the meaning of the Quran or meaning of the verse, or it is just pronunciation of it. So all those things needs to be looked at for. This is the kind of which one makes our life easier. That
It makes life easier.
Yeah, we needed to have this to figure those Qurans out. Yeah.
And that's what you've been doing. This is just the first 10 that
Yeah.
you're looking at. There are now 1,300 that we could, there are 26 that we could look
Yeah.
at. And of course, in all the 26, we're finding many, many of these. I see you're writing this all up because you have found so much that's different, so much that has changed.
Yeah.
Now, folks, we're going to conclude with what this all means. These ones that we've shown you, these are actual changes in meanings. Now, we could go on all day, giving you example after example. We could go through all 1,300.
Yeah.
Back down in Melbourne, in Australia, there's another group doing this. These are Arab scholars. They're Arab. They are all Arab speakers. And they are going through and looking at the Hafs and the Warsh, but they're looking at the other ones as well. They have 17. We've got 26. They only have 17. Their hands are full. They have already found 5,000 disagreements between the ones they're looking at. By next year, it'll probably be a few more thousand. Every year, we're going to be adding to this list. This is in 2016. Today is August the 8th. Today, August the 8th. We have already found 1,300 differences here in London between the Hafs and the Warsh. One example of the 6 Hafs and one example of the 3 Warshes. We have already found 1,300.
Yeah.
Now we're going to continue to do this. You can do that as well, Muslims. You need to realize this is the first time you've ever heard this. The reason why so many Muslims yesterday, they were all Arab speakers, got so angry, as you can see in the video, is because they have never been told this before. None of their imams have ever told us. The academics know about this. In fact, some of those at Speaker's Corner, Mansour Ahmad, he knows about this. Paul Williams, they admit that these are there. Although they still continue to say that these are nothing more than different readings. These are nothing more than when you read the text, you read it orally differently. No, these are not different readings. These are textual differences. These are canonical, consonantal differences. These change the meaning. I hope you've got that from the examples we've given you. We couldn't give you all of them. There are too many. There are thousands that we can deal with. Just to show you that this is something the Quran, the Muslims and the Quranic scholars need to admit, need to own up to. And the Muslim world needs to realize you've got many Qurans today. These are all modern day Qurans. These are not archaic, ancient Qurans from the 7th, 8th, and 9th century. Every one of these you can buy in your marketplaces. Go back, look at them. You do this homework. Thank goodness, Hatun, for all the great work you have done. Pouring through line after line after line, and then going to your Arab helpers, making sure that what you're finding is what they're seeing, and letting them actually translate it for you and show that these completely change the meaning from the Hafs to the Warsh.
Plus, it is shame that we don't have, we've got Muslims just telling around there is only one Quran, it has been unchanged, all those kind of things. But now we've got 26 Qurans. We try to look at some of them, and there are lots of more we need to look at. And I think we just encourage Muslims to stop saying that there is only one Quran and it hasn't been changed. It is exactly the same. That will be helpful for your dear Muslim brothers and sisters as well your Christian sisters in humanity.
I think also it'll help Muslims who always claim the Bible has been changed. And they're saying that there are 400,000 differences.
Yeah.
400,000
Variations.
variations they're looking at. Now, we know that these 400,000 are copies of copies of copies of copies that come from one variation. And what most Muslims don't realize is that when you go look at, when we have thousands of manuscripts to look at, we have 5,300
5,839 Greek manuscripts.
839 Greek manuscripts. We have 10,000 Latin Vulgates. We've got another 9,000 in other language. Roughly 26 to 27,000 manuscripts we can look at.
So we are, for the biblical side, we are comparing over 5,000 Greek manuscripts, and then we are saying, yes, there are the variations, number of the variations are approximately 400,000. But Muslims are comparing their manuscripts. For example, they are looking at the Topkapı versus current Hafs Quran. There are 2,270 variations, only one comparison, only one writings. Versus we've got over 5,000 writings, 400,000 variations. So that makes approximately one manuscript to has approximate 17 variations. Versus in Islam, just only from one manuscript, one completed Topkapı, we've got over 2,000 variations.
Okay,
so
let's unpack that because that's an awful lot of what people are trying to hear. Now, when you hear this word 400,000 variations, what it comes back to is that's what exists all the way through the Greek-speaking world with all the 5,000 manuscripts, 5,000 manuscripts. Now, let's go back. Many of them are copying, let's say, one word that is different from the others. That one word can be traced back to one manuscript. Let's just take the P45 manuscript that is in Dublin. That has a reference to Jesus going to the upper room with the 12. It just says Jesus went to the upper room with the 12. That was then repeated many, many times. Later on, one of the scribes wrote after the 12, the word disciples. Knowing that, hold on a minute, what 12 is he talking about here? Someone may not know that these are the 12 disciples. So he put the word disciples in. From that time, every scribe that came after that wrote disciples in there. Now, that's all right there. 100,000 of the 400,000 is just that one word that's been added on. Now,
thousands of them,
that's a quarter of all the manuscript variants that we have found. When you look at that together, so that's one of the 17 you're looking at, that's just one of them. Whether you say Jesus went to the upper room with the 12 or with the 12 disciples, does that change the meaning?
No, it doesn't change the meaning.
At all. Doesn't change the meaning at all. We know that. That's normal. We know that scribes can add a word here or add a word there, or even add a letter here or add a letter there.
I think other thing is important to mention. Christians have been very honest about it. I can go to the bookshop, buy a Bible. In my Bible, it just tells me, oh, that manuscript is with these variations. But I cannot buy something for the Quran like that. So as a Christians, we've been open about it because we know Bible is the word of God, revelation to the word of God, and it affects our eternity. We care about it, and then we are open about it. Versus in the Quran, for Islamic circle, we can't find those things. I think it was already time for a couple of centuries ago for Muslims to just produce us Quran with the different variations on it.
So, on one hand, we are now found hundreds, in fact, thousands of variations already in just the modern day Qurans. These are modern day.
Yeah.
Almost everything that the Muslims are pointing to are archaic manuscripts, old manuscripts. Modern day, there aren't any variations anymore other than, in fact, translations or different versions of way of saying the same thing.
Yeah.
But certainly from the archaic manuscripts, of the Greek manuscripts, we pretty well are only looking. There are only 40 verses that are in doubt. Now
For the
remember,
Bible, yeah.
that's not variations, that's not manuscript difference, that's verses that should not be there or should be there,
Yeah.
and we warn the readers where they are.
Yes.
As far as verses that have variants on it, we know where all the variants are.
Yep.
And that's why we have Nestle's and we have Bruce Metzger, who has gone through and listed every one of them.
Yep.
So we know where they all are. And do they change the meaning of any verse?
No, it doesn't change the meaning of the
Of
things.
any verse.
Yeah.
And the reason why
it
that
doesn't
doesn't
def-
bother you or me, why doesn't that bother us that there are these variations in the Bible?
First of all, we are open about it. Plus, we know Bible is written by human beings. Human beings makes mistakes.
So we don't
and-
make this claim
yeah.
that it's eternal.
And we go back, and then we can chase those mistakes back, and then we can come up with the originals. But it for the Quran, so we don't make a claim regarding the Bible. It is the Bible as a book. It is the eternal word of God.
And we know that men wrote it.
Yes, we know.
Inspired by God.
Inspired by God, written by
finite men.
approximate 40 different people in the different locations.
3 different continents.
Yeah.
3 different languages.
Yeah.
Over 1,400 years.
Yeah.
And yet we can pretty well know that we can trust 99.9% of it.
Yes, British
know it-
Museum shows us that.
That British Museum, the British Library, it's amazing what they have
Yeah.
stored there. But the great thing about the Bible is we know it is not eternal, like the Muslims claim the Quran is eternal.
Yeah.
We know that it was not sent down to one man, like the Muslims believe it was sent down to Muhammad. We know that it was not canonized at one period, like the Muslims believe, and that are completely confused. We now know their canonization is just less than 100 years ago.
Yeah.
The canon of the New Testament was already in existence by the 3rd, 4th century. We already knew. In fact, by the 1st and 2nd century, we already knew which 26 7 books of the
Yeah.
New Testament would belong. The early church fathers had already agreed on that.
Yeah.
What's important is none of the church fathers, when they accumulated all these 27 books, none of them suggested that they were somehow magical books that come from God.
Yeah.
They were inspired by God, and that every man wrote it in their using their own abilities and using their own idiomatic expressions. That's why you have 4 different gospels, 4 different ways of saying the same story.
Yeah.
So we don't make the claims that Muslims make, and that's why we don't get angry when people show us that there are variations in the Bible. We know the variations are there. That's nothing new for us. No Christians got angry when the Muslims say, you've corrupted our Bible, we've corrupted our Bible. The first question we ask them is, does the Quran agree with you on that? Knowing that, we know where the variations are. We know exactly where the verses that are in doubt are. We've been very honest, as Hatun has said. Muslims, you need to start being honest. And you need to start admitting there is not one Quran. In fact, it looks like there's a multiplicity of Qurans. That's just within the 7th and 8th and 9th century. But even today in the 21st century, just look at all these Qurans. None of them agree completely. They agree in the main, but there are variations all through them. Almost every page has disputes about which word should be there by different scholars, students of different teachers, who don't believe this word should be there, this word should be there. That's still going on today, and we're now 1,400 years after Muhammad. We leave this with you. This has been a good time to unpack what we did on yesterday. Go up and look at both of them. Understand why Muslims do get angry. And Muslims, if you do get angry and you now are starting to have doubt about your Quran, you know where you can come to. Come on home. Come on home. It's so good to know that we have a Bible that doesn't have these problems. We don't ever claim what your scholars have been claiming. Don't get angry with us. Get angry with your scholars. Get angry with the imams who have been telling you week after week, month after month, year after year, the Quran has never changed. It is the same Quran we have today as in heaven that was revealed through to the Prophet Muhammad by the angel Gabriel. That is not true. Not after today. You can't say that anymore. All right. This is Jay.
And Hatun from London.
Here in London. Over and out.